So before we get started writing our 10-page argument paper, it's a very good idea to know the structure of the argument essay in this context for college writing and to read some examples. Before you can do that, let's go over what you can expect while reading argument essays. In an argument essay, the author makes a claim and offers reasons and evidence in support of that claim. They start with an issue, and any argument is concerned with an issue. Maybe it's something controversial or something that's unanswered. Maybe it's just an idea that different people hold different opinions about. Then the claim, and this is where your thesis comes in. It's the point the writer's trying to prove, and it's usually the writer's view on the issue, although sometimes a nice activity or a nice mental exercise is to take the other side from what you normally would think you believe. And you're going to include fact, value, or policy. The claim of fact can be proved or verified, which means proven true. A claim of value shows how one thing or idea is better or more desirable than other things or ideas, like right versus wrong or acceptable versus unacceptable. A claim of policy offers one or more solutions to a problem. Now, to support the argument, ideas and information intended to convince the reader that the claim is sound or believable qualify as support. You have reasons, evidence, and emotional appeal. And I'll tell you right now, this is where most of the 10 pages comes in. And if you wanted to, you could think of it very simply, is that your introductory section is going to be about a page, your conclusion section will be about a page, and each of these sections will be about 3 pages. And that would give you at least 10 pages. Well, that's actually adds up to 11, but then it doesn't seem so daunting to write 10 pages. And the more sources you have, the more support you will have, and the longer the paper will be. So if you feel like your paper is kind of too short or you don't have enough to say, you just don't have enough information. Let's look at each of these sections now. So the reasons. A general statement that backs up a claim is a reason. It explains why the writer's view on an issue is reasonable or correct. Reasons alone are not sufficient support for an argument, so you have to back them up with evidence. Evidence usually consists of facts, statistics, and expert opinion. The only place you're going to find those is outside your own brain, even if you think you're an expert. So that's where your research comes in. Examples and observations from personal experience are also evidence, but I don't want you to use any personal experience in this paper. There will be no I in your topic or in your evidence. Emotional appeal is a little more complicated, and it evokes the needs or values that readers care deeply about. The only way you can use emotional appeal is if you're very familiar with your audience, and you are, because they are the members of this class. Now let's talk about people's emotional needs and physical needs for a second. You've probably all seen this before. This is Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and usually we talk about this in psychology, but basically this pyramid builds from the bottom up. And Maslow contends, he's a famous psychologist, that people's physiological needs like breathing, food, water, sex, sleep, homeostasis, the need to keep things the same, and of course excretion, those things are things that we need more than anything else. Obviously, if you're not breathing or you have to pee, you're not going to be able to think. So we have to have those needs satisfied before we can move up the pyramid. Next comes needs of safety, security of body, security of employment, or security of resources like food and money. Morality, family, health, and property all need to be feeling secure. Otherwise, if any of these things you feel unsafe about or that they're in jeopardy, you're not going to be able to move up the pyramid and do higher level thinking. So all of the red ones here have to be satisfied, and all of the orange ones you have to feel satisfied that those are safe and secure. And then you can move on to things like friendship and belonging to a family or a group, and even intimacy. And it's funny to think that those things can't come before these other ones, but think of how many times people try to substitute these yellow ones for some of the others. It really makes more sense that if you have what you need to survive and you feel safe, then you're going to be able to form bonding relationships with other people. After those things are satisfied, then you can move into the area here that's green, which is self-esteem and confidence, achievement, respect of others, and respected by others. We think of school all the time as a place where people are demanding respect from their peers, or teachers are asking for respect from students. But think of how many people are hungry or tired, or don't have what they need at home or even at school, or don't have the kinds of relationships they want. It's almost impossible to expect someone to show respect or achieve or show us the kind of leadership that we ask for from students when these other things aren't met. Finally, once we've gotten to that point in the pyramid, then we're going to be able to talk about the self-actualization things like morality and creativity, spontaneity, problem solving, which is what all the Common Core standards are based on, lack of prejudice, which is the only way you can write a good argument paper, is to take away all your preconceived ideas, and acceptance of facts. So Maslow's hierarchy of needs will play into your argument essay when you know your audience. You know that most of the people in this room or in our classroom are still working on red, orange, yellow, and green, but you're going to be asking them to look at the things and think about things in this blue category, so you'll want to address any fears they might have or insecurities they have in these other areas. Now, when we move on to values, it's a principle or quality that's judged to be important, worthwhile, or desirable. It's difficult to define because not everyone has the same values. However, groups of people often have common values when it comes to their age or their socioeconomic status, and that sort of plays back into Maslow again. So you could think about Maslow when you think about the values that people have. Now, for me, the most important part of the paper is the refutation or the rebuttal. This recognizes and argues against the other side of the argument. And for our purposes, we're going to assume that there are only two sides to this argument, and you must take one side or the other. You can't sit on the fence. You can't have any gray area. So let's say you've taken the pro side of an argument. You have to recognize that the con exists. Just like yin and yang, there is a white side, there is a black side, and that's not a racial thing. That's thinking about that yin and yang circle. And when you recognize that that other viewpoint exists, then, and only then, can you find its weaknesses and cast doubt on the accuracy of that side. You do that with more evidence, and you can simply acknowledge it by stating it, and you're going to accommodate that opposing view and tell why your evidence is better. All right, so before you read an argument essay, think about the title, what it gives you for information, and how it makes you feel or think. That title, as a reader, sets your mind in a certain place. As a writer, when you put the title on a paper, you're really addressing your audience before you even begin. You're going to check the author's name and credentials. So if it's a student, you have one point of view. If it's an expert, you have a different point of view. And that's going to give you some more information. You're going to check the original source of the publication. Was it part of a corporate study? Is it something someone did for a class? Check the date. How old is it? How relevant is it? And then you skim through and preview it to see what might be included there, how long it is, are there any charts or graphs? And also, you're going to want to think about the issue before you read. How do you feel ahead of time? Now, while you're reading, you read the first time, and I say the first time because you're going to read it at least 2 times. Read it the first time just for an initial impression. The second time, either on the computer or on printed paper, you're going to read it and make some notations, key terms, unfamiliar words, good points, okay? And that's going to help you digest what you've just read. When you use a graphic organizer, after you've read and highlighted the essay, you might record the ideas in your own words. You might go back and reread difficult or confusing parts and fill in the organizer. And you're going to try and work through it with someone else, which is going to be easy to do because everyone's going to be reading the same sample essay. Now, your summary is not going to be a summary so much as it's going to be an abstract. And there is another PowerPoint that's going to talk about how to write an abstract. So I don't want you to worry about that right now. But basically, you're going to do what it says here. Read it 2 or more times, divide it up into parts, make some marginal notes, and then you'll write your abstract from your notes. When you analyze the elements and the reasoning of an argument, consider the aspects of any persuasive writing: purpose, audience, key terms, credibility, and what kind of support it has. There are some things that you need to consider, and faulty reasoning is one of them. There is another PowerPoint about faulty reasoning, some of which is circular, hasty, sweeping, false analogies, non sequiturs, red herrings, post hoc fallacy, and the either or fallacy. And there are about 20 of them or so. So you'll see another PowerPoint on that. So that's basically how to go about reading an argument essay and its main sections.